Hey guys, welcome to Tone Bros. My name's Casey.
And I'm Colin. We're going to get started with our current topic of the day. Casey, what do we got?
Alright, so our current topic today is the new Wampler Germanium Tumulus Deluxe. It's a mouthful.
It is.
So, Brian Wampler here a while back put out that little Germanium Tumulus. It was the small one, like the original Tumulus that came out. Just the tone, gain, and volume. Now he's released in the deluxe format. I guess he saved half those germanium diodes he had from the initial run.
He said he was going to do that initially.
Yeah, and he set out half of them for the standard and half of them for the deluxe.
Yeah.
It comes in, what did I say, 309 is what it comes in at.
Okay.
So it
or
was,
what it was then.
It did. It's
now
gone.
It's gone, man. Gone.
So I think they sold out in like an hour and a half.
Well, I think he spread it out. So he did a release, I think, in the morning, right? And then the afternoon.
Maybe so.
Something like that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, they're gone now, unfortunately. But, yeah, what's your thoughts on this?
So I think it's awesome that he did that. I also find it interesting. I don't know if you saw that Way Huge did a release.
They done that deep state.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they're. It almost feels like they're on the coattails of it.
Yeah.
Because it sounds kind of a similar...
Yeah, they done it with like in combination with reverb, right? Obviously Joe Bonamassa too.
Right.
But it was like Joe Bonamassa, reverb, and Way Huge all working together.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
The timing's kind of weird on all that. You would think they would have... Well, I guess they don't know the other companies what they're doing. But I guess let's stick to Wampler for now. So I've got an original Tumnus.
Yep.
Are there things I would change about it? Yeah, but I think overall it's a fantastic clone copy for a lot cheaper. I like it better than the Soul Food from Electro Harmonics. That being said, I've always been interested in the Tumnus Deluxe, and I think this new diode or whatever, if it truly is that amazing, that's awesome. I think there's definitely a lot of hype to it. There's a lot of people that are really building it up and making that price go up.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't know if I have, like, just because I have an original Tumnus, I don't know if I'm super interested in it, but I'd like to AB it.
All right. So I love the idea of the deluxe because you've got the 3-band EQ that you can swap up for whatever amp you've got and kind of define exactly what you're needing, But there's something about the simplicity of the 3-knob that I really like. So I really wanted to get the 3-knob version whenever it was released and totally missed out on it. I did pick up one of the deluxes. It's not gotten here yet as of this recording, so it's on the way. So I'll let you guys know what I think afterwards. I've kind of like gotten on this Klon kick lately. I've not been a Klon guy, like as a whole. I enjoy them and like them and appreciate them for what they are, but they've just never fit and stayed in my rig whatsoever.
Sure.
I'm not a giant fan of the Soul Food, but your Tumnus, the first time I played it, I was like, this is the first Klon pedal that really blew me away.
Yeah, my one reservation with that is there's something with the low mids, and I know that's what the Klon does, but there's almost maybe a little too much bass in the Tumnus. I mean, you can turn that treble up, and that's great. Also, I didn't realize, like, wherever that gain knob is, like, that really shapes your EQ too.
Yeah.
Like, in the Tumnus. So I'm really curious how this new one kind of turns out.
Yeah, and from what I understand, the way the Klon circuit works is you're actually rolling out clean signal as you're moving up the gain, rather than like increase, which is wild to think about.
Right.
But I mean, very few people turn it up much past like 9, 10 o'clock. A lot of people are just using it as the
I usually
boost,
have my gain at 9.
So yeah, I don't know. So I've gotten that Wildwood Mjolnir here recently.
Yep.
We've got that Tumnus, your standard Tumnus. We've got this Tumnus Germanium Deluxe.
Yeah.
And we've got a Soul Food.
We'll have to...
It sounds like we need to sit down with all of them and see what our opinions really are.
Yeah.
But I'm very curious to see what it's like. I know Anderson's done a video of the original Germanium whenever it came out. I think when the video popped up and came out, they were already sold out.
Right.
But whenever they compared it to the 2 Klons they had there, it was pretty close.
Yeah.
But demos are demos, right?
Right.
So you never know what you're going to get. But yeah, we'll come back with that here in a follow-up not too long from now. Yep. So you want to hit your first main topic?
Yeah, so my main topic, if I remember right, has to do with Solidstate and modeleramps. And really, I want to talk about, like, how crazy is it when we first started playing guitar, well, let me say this. When I first started playing guitar, which was like early 2000s, like how crazy the advances have been.
Yeah.
Like solid state amps, you had that Randall, and it was great for what it was.
Yep.
I mean, it was a great amp. But now you have like, these Fender Tone Masters, solid state amp, and they sound fantastic.
Yes.
You've got, modelers, which, I mean, that's changed the game completely. I just feel like everything's upping their game, and it's getting harder to find out or to hear, is this a tube amp or is this solid state, modeler, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think it's getting a lot harder to hear because it's context too. I think if you're sitting in the room with it playing it, you're going to feel it a lot more than you're going to hear it first off.
It's all about the feel.
It's all about the feel. But if you're in a live situation, I went and saw a concert last night, and the main guitar player was playing a fractal. And I know that. But when I heard him live, I was like, man, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
And the band before him was playing real amps. They had them on stage. They had mics. Obviously, they were playing real amps. But I think...
Who's to say a fractal's not a real amp?
Well, I mean, it kind of is, but I don't qualify it necessarily as a real amp. I would call it a modeler is what I would call it. But it's hard. I think the first ones that really kind of started breaking ground on that type of thing was probably Line 6. Mm-hmm. Whenever they come out with the spiders, as much as we want to like them or not like them, in the pod, they both kind of came out at similar times. I think those were the first ones that's like, this is this certain amp, and it was modeling it not great, but as well as they could at the time. It was really good. And I don't think people have advanced solid state amps any further.
Currently?
Yeah, I feel like...
The Tone Master.
Well, the Tone Master, but it's almost like modeling just one amp. Like, I know that's solid state, but they're working... It's not like, that Randall amp or like the old Marshall MG series that were just solid state Marshall amps. I don't think that they're trying to push that any further. They're spending all their cash on these modelers now, trying to get all these, like the Marshall Code series, where it's got 1 million presets and you got to download your phone.
Yeah.
I would like to see them work on just straight up, like solid state or even like valve state, where they have a valve preamp with a solid state power amp.
Right.
I think they're putting all their eggs in the one basket. And I think they could make a lot of advances just in that.
Where would you put, just curious because we're talking about it now, where would you put the Boss Katana and all that? Because I feel like, talk about a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
And it's kind of in between those worlds. It's solid state. It's got different amps that you can choose from. But talk about a grab and go solid state amp that kicks butt.
Yeah, I think it's got a foot in both. I really do. I think it's the amp that kind of crosses both platforms, because it's got certain settings. It's supposed to be like Recto, or it's supposed to be like, Marshall Stack or British Combo.
Push Fender.
Yeah, it's obviously modeling those types of amps, but it's also got its own solid state kind of sounds that are based in there too. And it's probably the one that, obviously with sales, it shows that it's
great.
It's the best at what it's doing, to be honest with you, I think. But I just wish that there were some companies out there making some more solid states or valve state things and trying to push out a little further, rather than just putting everything into the digital realm. Yeah. Because, there's only so much further it feels like we can take the digital realm.
Imagine if Friedman decides to make a solid state amp for pretty cheap.
Right.
And it kicks butt.
Yeah. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
I don't know, but I feel like they'd sell a lot.
They probably would. Well, they've got those little mini heads, right? And they're solid state.
Are they solid state? I thought they were tube.
No, I think they're all solid state.
Oh, well, shows you what I know.
Or they might even, I think they've got like a digital reverb on some of them. They've got the Diesel one, and they've got the Bogner one, and the Friedman one. But yeah, I think there's been huge advances in the modeling stuff, and it's gotten really good whenever you look at the Quad Cortex and all this stuff, which there was recently an update for. But I just feel like for those entry-level people that are just getting into guitar, I think a really good, solid, no pun intended, solid state amp or valve state amp would go a long ways for those people.
Yeah, I think...
And that's why the Katana's been so popular, I think, is because it is that straight ahead. There's no BS with it. It's the closest thing to a great, more recent, advanced solid state amp.
Right, and it's easy for bedroom volumes. You can gig with it if you need to. I mean, I feel like they've made huge headway since we started. I mean, going from the pod to like, all these crazy things they got with the Line 6 stuff and Helix, and they've got, oh goodness, what's the word? What's the company? Oh.
Kemper?
Thank you.
Yep.
Kemper, yeah. Like the floor effects and all that.
Yeah.
Head brush, all that
amazing.
types of stuff.
It's amazing. It's really cool what they've done. I like it. Everybody's putting something out, which is great because it drives, the market to get cheaper in some ways and get better in some ways. But I just think they've kind of left the solid state. The only people I know that's really making solid state amps that are still pretty popular, not including the Katana, is Orange. They make that the Crush series.
Yeah.
And those amps, for what they are,
Yeah.
sound really good. Yeah. I'm not a big Orange fan, but it's one of those solid state amps I've plugged into in the past and thought, this is pretty dang good for just an inexpensive solid state amp.
Right.
So, yeah, I think it's been great advances, but I think maybe we need to draw some attention away from that digital modeling world.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said for, you just can't replace the feel of a tube amp.
No, you can't.
Rolling off your volume, turning it all the way up, adding gain pedals.
Yeah.
There's just no replacement for it.
You know what? I just thought of another amp, too, that I loved that was kind of modeling-esque and solid state at the same time. And it's another Boss product, but those cubes. Remember the Cube 60? Like the big 112 version of those? They have those micro cubes and all that stuff that I think they still make. But the Cube 60 is a 112-inch speaker, and it had like 6 different models.
Right.
That thing was unbelievable.
Yeah, it had some effects on board.
Holy cow. Yeah. It was a predecessor, I guess, to the Katana, right?
Right. Yep. For sure.
But yeah, that's another one. Well, let's go ahead and move to gas or pass, or you got anything else you want to mention?
Nope, that's it.
That? Okay. So I've got a gas or pass for you. It is talking about the Digitech Drop pedal. So this is that pedal you can push down. It'll drop your tuning half step, whole step.
So this is like that one episode that we did, but it's an actual pedal form, right?
Right. It's not a whammy.
Right.
It's actually just the pedal made for that.
Okay.
You can go up or down. You can just have it octave only, all kinds of stuff.
Right.
It's got a momentary switch where you can do it just for a second, so you can do some crazy Jack White stuff.
Pretty cool.
It's $239, and it comes in a standard, pedal size format, kind of like Boss.
You said $239?
$239.
That's a little on the pricey side.
It is a little pricey. Now it's brand new prices. You can find it used probably for $180 or something like that, But
yeah.
What's your thoughts? Is this a gas or pass for you? Because it would be nice if you've got multiple tunings for a show or a gig.
No doubt.
That you could just step on it to get your like 2 or 3 half step down songs done, and you're done. It would save you from bringing a guitar.
Right.
What's your thoughts?
I don't. I'm trying to think of who it was, and I won't remember. I want to say it was like John Osborne or something from the Brothers Osborne, but someone had a drop pedal like that and just did it for like a drop D tuning, and they just kind of did it real quick, and then turned it off, and it was ready to go.
Wow.
I don't know if it was drop D or necessarily like a DAG-GAD, or maybe it was even an open G or something like that. But it's really cool. I love the idea, but man, that price point. Surely somebody can make one for a little cheaper.
And there's probably versions of it out there cheaper through different people, but I think it's probably the best at doing it. They're
for the
ones
tracking.
They're the ones that are known for it.
Because that's the hardest part, is getting the tracking right. The note, like when you play it, there's not a delay.
Yeah, I think tracking is probably really hard. And then also, I think depending on your environment, if you're playing a place that's not real loud, and you're going to hear some of your like live guitar hidden, that's going to it feels like that would throw me off quite
That would
a bit.
throw me off for sure.
You're playing in drop D, or you're playing in like some weird open tuning, and all of a sudden you hear standard tuning coming from your guitar.
I mean, how often are you going to hear that? That's only when you're at home, really.
Yeah, you wouldn't think you would hear it very often. But I haven't sat down and played one of these in a live environment or anything. So, yeah, do you feel like it's something you could use?
I feel like it's an embarrassment of riches. Like, do you really need one? Probably not.
I don't know. What if you've got 3 or 4 different tunings you got to use that night?
Then you need to be playing like some stadiums or something. There's no reason for you to have like 5 tunings.
Yeah.
Unless you're Jimmy Page.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've had times where I've had songs, I've played standard tuning for a song. I've had like a drop D tuning or something like that, and then like half step down or like whole step down. I've done that many nights where I've had multiple tunings like that.
Yeah.
Or if you've got a Floyd Rose and you can't change your tuning.
That's true.
If you've got locking tremolo, you can't change your tuning.
That is a game changer. But I don't play that type of music. So.
No, I don't either. But man, I could see that really coming in handy.
Yeah. Or what it reminds me of is that EVH guitar with the, what is it called, a fish detuner or something like that.
Yeah, it was just detuna.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what it kind of reminds me of. But I mean, why wouldn't you just get something like that?
Yeah, I mean you can. I do see it. Maybe it is an embarrassment of riches.
I think so.
$230,
it's cool.
$240.
Cool, but to me, not worth it.
Yeah,
it's
that
a
makes
pass.
sense. Yeah, I think it's a pass for me. Most of the time, I don't have a big need to play in a bunch of different tunings. Maybe two. And if it's two, usually it's like drop D or something simple I can just retune to real quick in between songs. Or even have a second guitar that I'm using as my backup guitar. And I can just grab that's in a different tuning. If something goes down with the main guitar, I'll have to retune that one. But at least I can just grab that second guitar and I'm off to the races. So that makes sense.
Yep. All right, I'm going to move to my guess or pass. And I'm going to make a statement that's kind of bold.
Uh-oh.
This could be the best living room ramp of all time.
Wait. What did you just say?
The best living room ramp of all time.
Oh, da-da-da.
The Supro Delta King.
Ooh.
I feel like it is, first of all, it looks cool.
Yeah, it does.
And that's like 90% of what we care about, right?
You know, there's three things that matter. But anyway.
Yeah, so, I mean, it looks awesome.
Yeah.
It's, 5 watts-ish?
Yeah.
There's a clean, there's a drive, there's a boost. You got reverb on board. You can get the 10-inch, the 12-inch, whatever you want. But that might be the best living room amp of all time. Now, that's to say if you want tube.
Yeah.
And you don't want, like, a headphones jack.
Right, yeah.
But if you want something that looks cool in the room, that inspires you, that's classic sounding and looking, it might be the best living room amp of all time.
Boy, it's close. It is close.
It's up there.
It's close.
And it's like, what, $600, $700 depending on what size you get?
Yeah, it's all depending on your size there. I actually have been pretty impressed with those amps.
They're awesome.
They're so narrow and thin, too.
You can grab and go anywhere.
Very light, very small. Boy, it is true. It's a great amp. And they look great. I like the, they've got kind of that yellowish kind of color.
Right.
I really like that with the little stripes. And then they've got the blacked out versions, which are really cool too.
Yeah.
I don't think your significant other is going to throw it out of the living room like some amps.
It looks great.
It looks pretty cool. Kind of looks like an old radio or something.
Yeah.
It's small enough you could probably lay it down and shove it underneath a coffee table if you even needed to.
Right.
It's very small. But yeah, I don't know. It's pretty bold to say it's the best living room amp ever.
Best tube living room amp.
Tube living room amp.
Because, I mean, we could talk about the Princeton Tone Master because, I mean, that's cool looking.
Yeah.
And that's probably the most portable. Like,
There's some Supros out there that are pretty cool.
They got some tiny Supros, but like a lot of them don't have reverb. Like one just has a more knob.
Yeah.
Like I've looked at those. They've got one that's like got some reverb, but it's also like 17. Okay, maybe that's a bold statement, but it's at least $1,200.
Yeah.
And like I'm not gonna buy that for a living room amp.
Yeah, the Supros I've played that are really small sound like they're really small. It's kind of like the Pro Junior. I really like the idea of the Pro Junior.
The Blue Tolex Supros is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Not the Delta Kings.
Right.
Yeah.
But they just sound really boxy to me and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the Delta Kings, they don't sound that way.
No.
It is, people don't want to like really do it. I don't know if it's because it's Supro or what the deal is, but it's the biggest competitor for a Blues Junior, I think, out there.
I think so too.
I mean, it kind of fits in between a Pro Junior and a Blues Junior in like size and everything, but it is a unbelievable amp for the money, and I think it fights right against a Blues Junior all day long.
And it's channel switching.
And it's channel switching.
I mean, it's hard to beat it.
Yeah. And used, they probably don't go for much, right? 5 or 6 probably, and somewhere in that ballpark.
You probably find some around $450, I would think.
Gosh, yeah. I'm thinking about a bedroom amp here, or a living room amp here recently, and maybe that's one I need to put on my list to think about.
I think it's top contender for best living room amp.
Huh.
So is it gas or pass?
Well, now it's a gas.
Yeah.
Before I would have told you it's a pass, and I would look at like a Blues Junior, or I would look at all these different things out there.
Yeah.
Or Yamaha THR and some of that stuff that's out there.
The only one that I could think about that would be a good contender, but it's not tube.
Yeah.
We clarified tube is Boss Katana.
Yeah. Yeah, Boss Katana and Yamaha THR are the other two like living room amps that I think about, but neither of them are tube.
But they also don't look as cool as the Supro.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
So,
yeah, it's a gas for me now. What about you?
yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
That's what I needed.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this main topic that I was going to bring up, I want to talk about acoustic strings and kind of give a little bit of a guide of how we think about acoustic string materials and gauges.
Okay.
We're not going to get into specific brands, and we can get into like coded debates and stuff like that at another time. But I just kind of want to talk about gauges specifically, and I want to talk about materials. So the two most common materials is 80-20 bronze and phosphor bronze.
Right.
And for me, the phosphor bronze is always much warmer, much fuller and fatter sounding. 80-20 is a lot brighter, a lot more poignant.
You just say poignant?
Yeah, that's not the right word I was looking for.
No, I was just proud of you for like using some vocabulary.
Yeah, it was not what I was searching for. It's what came out. But it kind of works for that, actually. So I think that certain guitars probably qualify for different strings, my opinion.
Sure.
So I kind of treat them all differently. But how do you treat these materials? Do you always go to one, phosphor bronze or 80-20? And do you always go to the same gauges, or do you change it up, or how do you pick those out? Because it's honestly, acoustic strings are on top of the list for the biggest changer in acoustic sounds, I think.
Yeah, strings and picks.
Strings and picks.
I
And
mean,
setup.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
that's without saying. So I'm really basic when it comes to stuff like this.
Yeah.
And I don't, if it works.
I wish I could be basic when it comes to this, but I just get in my head and get in the weeds. I can't do it.
If I find something that works, like I just try not to mess with it. So I've always used Elixir Phosphor Bronze. Now I will say I'll change the size, the gauge strings, depending on the guitar. So like, for instance, I got a GS Mini. I'm going to treat that a lot different than like a Martin full body dreadnought. I'm going to change the size strings just to give it either a more dense sound to it, or if the guitar can handle a more dense sound. A GS Mini, though, it's got some boom to it. So I really don't have to worry from that guitar so much to a dreadnought. But you get into things like Baby Taylors. You get into, there's Martin's got some small body acoustics, Gibson LOOs. I mean, you're going to have to change up some of that string.
Yeah.
Mass. But I've always went with Elixir. I have no qualms with using Martin strings, Diodario, or anything like that. It's just what works. It's one of those things like I buy it and then I don't have to think about it for a while, and usually they stay in tune. So I don't have to stretch them all that much. So I've always went with that. So you're probably asking the wrong guy. And with all my acoustics, because they can handle the bass and because they have some highs to them and they're not all mahogany. I don't have any Gibson acoustics. I've got Martin and I've got Taylor. But that being said, I really don't have to switch up my strings that much because they're all kind of in the same ballpark.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think probably a lot of acoustic players kind of fall in that same type of realm, as a lot of their acoustic guitars are kind of in a little bit of a niche. If they're Martin guys, they're really hard into Martin guys. And they might not need to change their strings up a whole bunch because they're similar tonality.
Right.
If you've got drastically different guitars, it's really going to change things up quite a bit. So, yeah, I changed my string gauge up according to kind of the size of the acoustic and what I'm using it for. I've got it's mahogany back and sides, spruce top with a cutaway and electronics. Its action's much lower. So for that reason, I use a lot lighter gauge string on that.
Because you're going to be bending on it more.
Because I'm going to be bending on it more. It's made mainly and set up mainly for plugging in and playing live acoustic electric stuff. So I use a little bit lighter gauge, but I still use phosphor bronze on that. Just gives it a nice full sound, especially if the string's lower. It helps if I do play it acoustically. It just sounds a little bit bigger to me and less thin. With my J45, I've got the actions quite a bit higher. I usually use light, sometimes medium gauge I've been playing with lately. And I've been a phosphor bronze guy on almost every guitar I've played for years and years. I've played with Monel strings from Martin, which everybody brags about and talks about so much. It's like, oh, this is great. And I think Tony Rice uses them and all these different things. And I tried them, and whenever they first came out of the package, they sounded awful. And everybody says they got to break in and you got to get them like sounding halfway decent after playing them for a little while. And then I played them for a little while and they sounded really good for like a week. And then they died out. And dead strings sometimes on acoustics are a really cool thing.
That's what I was going to go into when you were done here.
Yeah, and with the right guitar, that's perfect. But for my daily driver acoustic, I don't want like dead to the wall strings most of the time. And I just couldn't vibe with them, so I couldn't do that. I recently put a set of 80-20 bronze on my J45, and I thought, well, I need to play with this some more and play some different string gauges, so I tried a new string gauge, and they were 80-20. And you actually heard it the other day and said you really like it, and you thought it was your favorite strings you've ever heard on that J45. And I thought it was the worst strings I've ever heard on it.
Yeah.
So it just shows the difference in where we set with that.
Yeah.
And maybe what we're trying to get out of the guitar. Because you can get a lot of different sounds out of a guitar.
Oh, yeah, and where you're picking and using your fingers to pick, I mean.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to the drawing board with this some more. And they were a light gauge of 80-20s. So maybe I'm going to try some medium 80-20s and it'll kind of balance that out. It won't be quite as thin as the 80-20s that were light. Because it'll be a little larger string.
Yeah.
But... yeah, at first I was like, oh, I got to get these things off here. And then you heard it and you were like, oh, no, that sounds great.
Yeah. You know who I bet, like, is the king of, all things with strings?
Who's that?
Billy Strings.
It was a joke. It was a bad joke.
Well, that's awful. Yeah. Well, the dad jokes are on point tonight.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was going to say Brian Sudden, but I guess we're going Billy Strings. Brian Sudden is the acoustic master, and he loves just straight up Diodario. I don't remember if he's using phosphor bronze or 80-20. I think he's using...
Sorry, I'm still laughing at my joke.
I know. We can't fix him, folks. We can't fix him.
Anyways.
But I think he's using phosphor bronze, if I remember right, and he kind of chooses gauge according to what string it is, or what guitar it is. So... yeah, I don't know. I've got some more playing to do with this, but if I'm choosing between 80-20 bronze and phosphor bronze, if I've got a guitar that's all rosewood with a spruce top, I'm probably looking more at phosphor bronze because it's a little warmer. Rosewood's a little brighter. If I'm looking at something like a D18 or even a J45, my first string I want to look at is probably an 80-20, even though that's not been my go-to. I think that's probably what is going to match with it the best. And if I'm going with the small-bodied acoustics or something, I probably want a phosphor bronze because it's going to, make it sound that much bigger, that much warmer, unless you're going for an acoustic electric thing.
If you're in the weeds with us at this point and you're still listening, power to you.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, I'd be curious to see what you guys think of strings, what materials you're using, what sizes you use, and on what guitars. Because it's all within context.
For sure.
Because if you're just telling me what string you've got... well,
what music you're playing.
That's great. But, yeah, what music? If you're playing bluegrass, you're going to want some big old heavy mediums. If you're playing some, wild other stuff, you might want something lighter.
Or maybe you play a nylon guitar string.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, there's tons of options out there. But yeah, let us know. Let us know the guitar, what type of stuff you're using, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.